as we approach Nintendo Direct season, it gets more and more telling how desperate people are to try and downplay every new announcement that comes out. First we had to downplay the Super Mario Galaxy Movie Direct. Then we had to downplay the Tamagotchi Life Direct. And now the rumor is the next Nintendo Direct is going to be a partner showcase, and everyone's kind of telling on themselves by coming out and saying, we don't want a partner showcase, we wanted a general Nintendo Direct because third-party developers ain't shit, and Nintendo is just so much better. We'll still hype up slot like Expedition 33, Clair Obscur, and Astrobot, but we don't want to hear about those games. We want to hear about Nintendo games so we can downplay them. Right? Like, it's become kind of a thing in the community right now, is that people are begging for a Nintendo Direct specifically so they can see the next Mario and Zelda. And that's been the thing about the Switch 2 so far, is that, everyone's screaming about how the Switch 2 has no games, how there's nothing on this console, how there's nothing to play. But when you really dig into the situation, when you look at what people are actually saying, that's just a code word for saying that all we care about is Mario and Zelda. And this is the really interesting thing about the Switch 2. The thing that I'm not really seeing a lot of people address, because traditionally this was a real issue with Nintendo hardware. There was this real dedicated community that spurred out whenever we didn't get a new 3D Mario or Zelda day one. I remember back in the GameCube days, that was a major controversy with Luigi's Mansion coming out before Super Mario Sunshine. For a lot of people, that was some huge betrayal. Like, how dare you give us a Luigi game instead of a Mario game? And obviously, over time, Luigi's Mansion became a huge thing, and is this huge cultural phenomenon, and people love it, and all that. But it really needs to be said that, at the time, moves like that didn't go over very well. It's very easy to forget how unpopular Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion and Animal Crossing were when they first came out. It's very unusual to kind of look back on this and remember anything other than, just having a positive experience. But a lot of people did not care for these games when they came out. Because, we only want Mario and Zelda. That's all we care about. We're at the point now where Nintendo has so many AAA franchises, so many big names attached to them, that they do not need a new 3D Mario or a Zelda to sell their video game console. And that's what we're seeing from this situation. That is what we've been seeing over the past over this console generation, is that the Switch 2 launched with a Mario Kart game and a Donkey Kong game, right? Two big names, but not 3D Mario platforming and not full budget Zelda, 3D adventure, right? We got Hyrule Warriors as well, but we launched the Switch 2 with these smaller releases, and the narrative right now is that the Switch 2 is doomed, it doesn't have games, there's nothing to keep it going, and yet the actual numbers say otherwise. And people like Nintendo aren't really putting two and two together to address what's actually happening, because the Switch 2 is selling very, very well in spite of yet having its biggest names attached to it. The Switch 2 is doing as well as it is in spite of all this. So, first of all, that means that smaller names are getting bigger. Games like Fire Emblem, games like Donkey Kong, games like Hyrule Warriors, Kirby, all of this. Tamagotchi, Rhythm Heaven, these games have had a pretty good chance at the spotlight, after years and years of a lot of these games not getting new iterations, they launch on Switch 2, they're hugely popular, they're hugely successful, they're doing very, very well. Tamagotchi Life, I think, is number one in gaming right now. It's topping the bestsellers charts. It's this huge deal, right? You have all these games coming out that are doing really, really well, and the Mario and Zelda games are coming, right? So not only are these smaller games getting a chance at being successful, at coming out, at finding an audience, at building, selling Switch 2s, like there's always this feeling, like, in the community that like at any point we can get a mind-blowing new announcement from Mario or Zelda, right? And that shouldn't be like thought of as just be like, oh man, I hate this filler crap, I just want the real games. Like, no, like, we really do need to understand that it's very important for Nintendo's business to expand their portfolio outside of Mario and Zelda. Because, of course, what would have happened if Mario and Zelda had come out immediately is that the very same people would have come out and did what they did with Tears of the Kingdom, right? And Mario Wonder, where they came out and they were just like, oh, that's it? Oh, man, this isn't as good as it used to be. Oh, like, Mario and Zelda isn't automatically better than the other games that come out. There are actually quite a few games, I'm sure, that I like more than those now. Fire Emblem probably chief among them. But the simple fact of the matter is, like, the mindset that we see from the community that, like, oh, we need a Nintendo Direct so we can see the next Mario and Zelda, like, it's completely ignorant, You're completely downplaying everything else that's coming out. You're ignoring all the third-party games. Like, in your mind, there's no chance, like, no possible chance that any Switch 2 game other than Mario and Zelda could be successful. And when we finally do get the Mario and Zelda game, when we finally get those announcements, what ends up inevitably happening, like, that's it? Like, how disappointing. And then you just, like, turn around and start shitting all over them, Like, that is the pattern that we've been seeing over the past several years. Okay, that is what we've been seeing over the past, like, past 25 years of, like, Nintendo's history, is just people overhyping Mario and Zelda games while downplaying everything else, and then being disappointed when games like Twilight Princess or Mario Sunshine, like, don't live up to expectations, right? Again, it's very possible that the new Mario and Zelda could be bad for whatever reason. Mario in particular, I didn't really like Odyssey or Bonanza all that much. 3D Mario, in my mind, is in kind of a rough place. Like, probably the roughest place it's ever been. Not that, like, the masses agree with me on that, but that's just my opinion. My expert, 25-year, like, Nintendo fan opinion. Like, there are, like, better games out there than 3D Mario, but you would never know that by looking at these people and seeing them talk about this stuff and, like, freak out about it incessantly. Like, again, all of this is just a giant cope to try and keep the discussion around the Switch 2 negative, Like, we have been swamped with high-quality releases all month long, okay? January is probably going to be the slowest month of the year for Nintendo, and yet we got, like, an update to Animal Crossing, we got Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest VII's coming out next week, Mario Tennis the week after that, Yakuza 3 is coming out, Tales of Berseria, Monster Hunter Stories 3, Pragmata, Tamagotchi Life. Like, we are swamped with games, right? Completely swamped with them. And the narrative has always been among the community that this isn't good enough, like, Nintendo can't succeed, that they aren't capable of doing what they need to do to be successful. And this is an incredibly embarrassing take from the community. Like, this is what we really do need to discuss in this space, that Nintendo has won the console war, but now we're in this weird period where people are in denial about it. They're downplaying the success of the console, they're downplaying the success of certain games, and they're downplaying the long-term viability of a lot of Nintendo franchises. Splatoon is probably the best example, because every time we get any new Splatoon announcement, whether it's like an update or a new game or a spin-off with like Splatoon Raiders, you have these 40-year-olds just kind of sitting there, like, seething, like, oh no, this again, oh, Splatoon, it's the same thing over and over again, And then meanwhile, in reality, it's this rapidly growing franchise. It's this, like, constantly expanding thing with, like, millions of fans. It's, like, Nintendo's biggest IP now, right? Like, Splatoon is going to have this huge, like, pop-off period at some point. But what Nintendo does with their franchises is they prioritize long-term success over short-term profits. So something like Overwatch, like, comes out of the gate, like, sprinting, and, like, by, like, 2020, it's, like, out of breath and exhausted. And, like, meanwhile, Splatoon is running at a more reasonable pace, growing, expanding the lore, the universe, the mechanics, making tweaks to the gameplay, like, improving the experience. And they understand the online shooter market better than anything in the industry, right? At this point, the only reason it hasn't taken off yet was because the genre was so oversaturated, right? Like Splatoon is struggling to appeal to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC players who sneer at Nintendo games, but it is a rapidly growing thing. It is becoming more popular, and it's going to become more and more difficult to write off and ignore over time. Like that is going to be like Splatoon, and I think there are like a handful of other like Nintendo franchises like that. Donkey Kong came back. Rhythm Heaven's coming back. Like Tamagotchi Life is coming back. Like you're seeing all these games that are all going to do really, really well. And what we keep seeing is people being blindsided by how well these games actually do. Like it's embarrassing seeing like Nintendo or whoever come out and try to say that like, well, Tamagotchi Life only did well in Japan, and it's probably not going to sell as well as a real game like Metroid Prime 4. It's delusional. It's a cope, okay? Like, you keep seeing these people say this nonsense, but all of it's going to fall apart. I imagine it's going to be a very, very long time before we see a new 3D Mario or a Zelda. So when you take that into consideration, like when you look at like what's happening, like the thing I'm excited about is the possibility of seeing Nintendo like, make some more experimental titles and like do some more things out of the box. But everyone else is just wants the same old slop they've always been given. And that is something that we as fans really need to learn to reject and make fun of. Like this entire situation has been ridiculous.